Welcome to episode 31 of the Security Matters podcast, where we bring you the latest news, views, and opinion from across the UK's dedicated security business sector. My name's Brian Sims, and I'm the editor of Security Matters magazine. We're delighted that this podcast is sponsored by the Security Event, which runs at the NEC in Birmingham from the 8th to the 10th of April 2025. Security Matters is once again serving as the lead media partner for the exhibition. To register for the show, visit www.thesecurityevent.co.uk. Turning to the news now, and the threat posed by subversive attacks is on the increase, with almost half of all European chief security officers expecting to be impacted by them. No fewer than 447 CSOs were surveyed in Europe for the first iteration of the World Security Report published by G4S. In total, 1,775 CSOs took part in 30 countries. Across Europe, security services are on high alert in relation to a potential increase in subversive attacks following a spate of arson and sabotage strikes on infrastructure and businesses in the Baltics, Germany, and also here in the UK. Recent examples include a fire at a homeware store in Lithuania back in May, which the Polish Prime Minister suggested may have been started by a foreign saboteur. Further, investigators alleged an arson attack in London showed signs of overseas involvement. An inferno destroyed Poland's biggest shopping centre, while there was also an attempted sabotage on a military facility in Germany. Noah Price, the international director at the G4S Academy, explained, "The anticipated rise in subversive threats across Europe signifies a critical juncture for corporate security. These threats are becoming increasingly more prevalent. On that basis, businesses must adopt a proactive and comprehensive approach towards safeguarding their operations and assets." Price continued, "Businesses must invest in physical security measures such as artificial intelligence-enabled surveillance systems, multi-layered access control, and also fire suppression systems. Such measures should be put in place in conjunction with cybersecurity, and in tandem, there needs to be the fostering of a work culture underpinned by vigilance and security awareness. Companies of all sizes can play a crucial role in preventing subversive threats against their organisations and securing their country's national infrastructure. Best practice here includes enhancing the cybersecurity infrastructure, making physical security enhancements, putting in place training and awareness programs for employees, incident response planning, conducting regular risk assessments, and also evaluating security in the supply chain. In terms of enhancing the cybersecurity infrastructure, it's prudent to invest in advanced cybersecurity technologies and ensure that systems are regularly updated to protect against the latest threats. Implementing multi-factor authentication, encryption, and regular security audits will be key. In addition to cybersecurity, it's best practice to enhance physical security measures such as surveillance and access control, and secure facilities to protect them against sabotage and espionage. Regular training sessions to educate employees about the latest security threats, phishing schemes, and safe online practices will be a must. Awareness is the first line of defence against subversive activities. Developing and then maintaining a robust incident response plan is also vital. This should include procedures for identifying, containing, and mitigating security breaches, as well as communication strategies for internal and external stakeholders. It's good policy to conduct regular risk assessments that will identify potential vulnerabilities. Appropriate mitigation strategies can then be implemented. This should cover both physical and digital assets. Always ensure that third-party vendors and suppliers adhere to stringent security standards. A compromised supplier can be a weak link that exposes the organisation to subversive threats. Engaging with security experts and participating in information sharing networks is beneficial. Collaboration with industry peers and security experts alike can provide valuable insights and enhance threat detection and response capabilities. In conclusion, Noah Price observed, "Proactively incorporating as many of these physical and cybersecurity measures as possible will deter saboteurs and threat actors before they strike. A preventative approach is the best approach, and it's also one that all organisations must look to foster both now and into the future." Our first guest on episode 31 is Professor Mark Button, Director of the Centre for Cyber and Economic Crime at the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice within the University of Portsmouth. Mark joined the University of Portsmouth back in 1997, becoming a professor in 2012. The core focus of his research is counter-fraud and cybercrime, with that research being conducted on behalf of numerous bodies including the Home Office and Fraud Prevention Service Cifas. During our interview, Mark concentrates his attentions on emerging trends, the impact of the general election, and where we are now on the crime-fighting curve. Thanks very much for joining us on the podcast, Mark. Could you tell us what research projects you're working on at the moment?
So I'm working on several projects at the moment. The biggest project I'm working on is one for the Home Office via an organisation called ITED, which is looking at organised fraudsters in Nigeria, Ghana and India. Some of your listeners will be well aware that a major source of fraud and cybercrime for the UK and many other Western countries are these countries. So we've been tasked to try and get a greater understanding of the nature, extent, characteristics of the fraud problem in these countries and to identify potential areas where the UK and other governments could intervene to better prevent those fraudsters targeting the UK and related countries. So it's been one of the most interesting projects I've done in recent years, because we have been talking to fraudsters, we've been talking to law enforcement in those countries, we've been talking to obviously the UK law enforcement as well as some interesting characters who engage in scam fighting, or scam baiting as some people call it. So we've got a lot of really interesting information from that, some of which will obviously find its way into publications in the near term, but obviously our first area of this research will be with the Home Office in the next month or so. So that's the biggest project I'm working on at the moment. I've just finished a project off in partnership with Perpetuity and Professor Martin Gill, which was funded by the Doors Trust, which was looking at partnerships in fighting economic crime, and looking for the potential and possibilities for particularly the private sector to work with the police in the fight against economic crime. And we'll be launching that report in the next month or so, where the report's finished, but we're just waiting for approval from the Doors Trust. And then there's a project I'm just about to start, which is in partnership with the Police Foundation, and we're looking at fraud victims and the impact on them in terms of health, and what that means for services provided by the NHS in terms of how much they access those types of services, what are their needs, how common are health impacts from these types of victims. So those are the projects that are kind of keeping me up at night at the moment, trying to get those done. There's obviously also other things that I've completed in the last year or so that I still need to write up. I did a project just over a year ago for the Centre for the Protection of National Infrastructure on the use of social media to find individuals to then try and compromise them into engaging in espionage. And that was a really interesting project where we have produced an article from that, which we've been finishing off. So lots of different projects on the go.
And what's the current focus at the University of Portsmouth in relation to the subject of security and economic crime, Mark?
Well, we have for a very long time had a undergraduate risk and security management degree, which is distance learning, which many people in the security industry and related professions have come and studied on, and we've had some really good students over the years doing that. That obviously still continues. We had a kind of restructuring of our master's degrees in our department, and we had a security management master's for some time, which again has been very successful, but with the restructuring it was kind of rested for a couple of years, and that's going to relaunch again this September, but as terrorism and security management. So there was a kind of belief from some colleagues that it was important to pair terrorism with security. Obviously the other side is the economic crime side, and we also have a master's in economic crime, which is both distance learning and campus, which again is one of the few masters you can sort of study out there in this area, and again produces some really interesting students from not just this country but many other countries who with an interest in economic crime. We also have obviously security and sort of economic crime embedded in our undergraduate criminology degrees. We try to kind of make our degrees more applied and unique compared to many other criminology degrees in offering these options and streams to try and interest our students in careers beyond the more traditional police and probation and prison service that is the kind of focus of many other criminology departments in the rest of the country. We've also done some interesting things with some key organisations. So last year we launched a certificate in intellectual property crime, which we have developed in partnership with Interpol. And that's again a distance learning certificate, which has been again sort of quite popular, particularly from overseas students. And at the very highest levels, obviously, we have our professional doctorate in security management and the traditional PhD programs, of which we have some very interesting students from all kinds of backgrounds studying at a doctoral level. So in terms of education and teaching, we have a lot of courses to offer individuals, working in security, cybercrime, etc., that would be of interest to them.
And do you see any key trends emerging in the domains of security and economic crime at the moment?
Well, I'm afraid you can't escape those words, AI. I think, sort of artificial intelligence is becoming so central to not just the fight against a whole range of different types of crimes, but also, unfortunately, as a means for perpetrators to conduct crime. So if we look at the area of fraud, for example, there have been some quite high-profile cases in the media recently of individuals in organizations talking to what they think are other individuals that they know, but are actually being manipulated by AI with the purpose of obviously tricking them into making payments. We've seen Martin Lewis being used through AI to endorse products which are fraudulent. So we've got those types of high-profile problems that are emerging, but on a much more mundane level, lots of West African fraudsters who engage in romance fraud are also using AI now. They're using it to change and develop images. So one thing you could do in the past to try and detect if the person you're talking to is a fraud is do an image search. But now with AI, you can create an image which will never be found on a search. We're seeing AI being used to help identify and improve language. You can obviously ask AI to write a persuasive case to buy a particular product or service. So one of the kind of common things that people used to say about, how to spot a scam, well, look at the language. Well, that doesn't really work now because you can really improve your language to a high degree. So AI is, I think, driving a lot of new opportunities for a whole range of different frauds and cybercrimes to occur. But on the positive side, there is obviously opportunities to utilize AI to tackle a lot of problems, to identify high-risk transactions, to spot if images, etc., have been manipulated and doctored, etc. So I think, for the future, there will be a lot of discussion and talk about AI as both a problem but also as a solution. That is one of the kind of biggest problems we face in terms of the growing problems of cybercrime, fraud, etc.
In your view, Mark, will the general election exert a major impact on the security business arena?
We've obviously seen in America how foreign states have sought to try and influence the election with all kinds of different measures, not least things like social media and the use of AI and hacking of accounts and things like that. Certain foreign states will want to try and influence that. They'll want to try and stir up problems to create instability in our country. We've obviously also seen protests about all kinds of different things, and obviously elections provide a kind of an opportunity to focus on a number of different issues. You have politicians obviously going around the country, visiting people, and I'm certain that certain groups will try and disrupt that with direct action and those types of things to create publicity for themselves. So I think the election in this country will be important for security practitioners to look at, because it will produce those types of things which may affect particular companies, particular areas, etc. And obviously alongside the UK election, we're going to have the American election. And there could be some quite, interesting things that kind of feedback from that as well, where, we're almost certainly going to see hostile states trying to interfere in that election, quite significant things at stake. You've only got to look at Trump's campaign about about possibly, withdrawing from NATO. That obviously has huge implications for Europe and the UK if that was to ever occur. And clearly there are some states that would really like that to happen. Them trying to influence the election is almost certain to try and produce those kinds of outcomes, and to also perhaps sow further seeds of doubt in the need for NATO and supporting countries like Ukraine in their fight against Russia. So yeah, I think this election year is going to be interesting, and it's going to be something that security professionals really will have to watch very carefully to see what unfolds and some of the risks and challenges they'll have to deal with.
Cybercrime is an ever-present and burgeoning threat, of course, Mark. What's your take in terms of where we are now on the crime fighting curve?
Well, I think the UK is in on cybercrime is in a good position. Obviously, it could be better, but I think there's a lot of positives, and I'll just go through some of these. If we look at the National Cyber Security Centre, I think they do some excellent work. They produce a huge amount of guidance there. They're kind of intervening behind the scenes. We're very lucky to have a kind of strong organisation dealing with those aspects of cybercrime. I think the police through the regional organised crime units also have a kind of a strong position. I think they're under-resourced. I think that's an area that could be improved, and I think alongside of economic crime the fraudulent aspects of this, which I'll come to shortly, I think that's an area where more work needs to be done. I think obviously we have good evidence of the scale of the problem of cybercrime through the crime survey, through the cybersecurity breaches, and that can be utilised. And we have a lot of efforts going on to kind of try and improve that. But obviously there are lots of organisations, that perhaps aren't taking cybersecurity as seriously as it is. So you only have to look at the cybersecurity breaches survey each year, and you'll see, particularly medium-sized and small organisations not doing as much as they could. So I think there's still work to be done there. But I think in comparison to some other countries that I look at, I think definitely the head of the pack. With the cyber fraud side, I think historically that has been a kind of a weaker relation. I've been at the government's global fraud summit. I was at the UN last week looking at organised fraud. We've had the government's fraud strategy, and I think finally at last the government has realised this side of cybercrime, because ultimately most fraud these days, or the vast majority of it, is committed via cyber means. That also needs equal, if not more, attention, resources, and action. The fraud strategy has set out a kind of ambitious range of means to deal with this. We've had the Global Fraud Summit. They were, the very important part of bringing together different countries to fight this problem, because ultimately it is a problem that crosses borders and you cannot fight it alone. That's a good starting point. We're going to have some more resources dedicated to fraud. Not enough, I have to say. The kind of 400 extra investigators that are outlined in the fraud strategy probably brings us to about 2,000. Well, I do a lot of work with Korea. They've got 11,000 fraud investigators. So we do need more resources, but it's a good start. So I think there's a lot of good work going on. There's, like all these things, I think more resources need to be dedicated to this area. I think much stronger partnerships need to be developed, and that's not just at kind of an organizational level between public and private agencies. We need countries to work much more closely together to tackle the cyber criminals, because the cyber criminals have it very easily. If they want to work with someone in another country, they just make contact with them through their networks. It's easy for them. Whereas the law enforcement infrastructure has many more hurdles to jump through. So that side, I think, it does need more attention. But I think in the UK, we're definitely one of the leading countries but that's not to be complacent. There's still much more to be done. But certainly in the last year or so, I've been much happier with the focus and attention of government and other relevant key agencies.
And like myself, Mark, you chose to become a member of the UK Advisory Council for the International Foundation for Protection Officers. Why did you decide to join Council, and what is it that you can bring to the table?
I joined it because although these days I research mainly economic crime, cybercrime, I came into this whole world through traditional physical security. That was kind of originally my main interest, and I still think security officers are some of the most important individuals in enhancing security in organizations. The foundation is a really good organization for seeking to raise the standards of professionalism of security officers and related occupations. So I'm always passionate about any organization which seeks to enhance the professionalism of this group, and to make standards higher and to bring opportunities for them to work together and better themselves. It should be treated as a career. It's a very important role in organizations, and the difference between, in many cases, good and bad things happening. So that is one of my primary reasons for being involved. What I can bring is I'm one of the kind of few academics in this country that are, first of all, not only interested in this area, but secondly, actually is involved in running courses for these types of groups. So we have our undergraduate risk and security management degree, our master's in security management, and we have had in the past, security guards come to us, the very lowest ranks in the security industry, but with some academic talent who have studied with us and gone all the way through to master's degree, then gone on to do bigger and better things. So we provide that opportunity for those types of individuals to find a kind of academic route into a kind of much better, more senior position in the security industry. So I think that is the kind of the important aspect of providing that link for that organization. And sadly, the nature of universities these days, with the kind of tough financial situations many of us are in, some universities have come and gone with security, but I've been at Portsmouth University now 27 years, and for 25 years, we've had a security program. So, we're here to stay, and working with organizations like the foundation, I think are key means for not only obviously the benefit of us in getting us students, but also in helping those individuals that are associated with the foundation to improve their professionalism.
Back to the latest security news, and the inaugural gathering of the volunteer assessors, who are the lifeblood of the admittance process for the Register of Chartered Security Professionals, has taken place in central London. Generously sponsored by Core Security and hosted at the company's headquarters, it was Core Consult's Executive Director Mike Bluestone's idea to bring the assessment team together for an informal social evening in recognition of their efforts and results. Attendees included mentors, document assessors, essay assessors, interview assessors, and also members of the Independent Appeals Panel and Registrar Panel. They were joined by Ian Dyson, the new chair of the CSyP governing body, Don Randall, MBE, one of the key originators of the register on behalf of the Worshipful Company of Security Professionals, and also Julie Nell, chair of the Security Institute, which handles all applications to the register on behalf of the Worshipful Company. The register is fortunate to have so many CSyPs willing to donate their time and share their knowledge and experience to assist individuals in applying to be admitted. For applicants, there are forms to fill in, evidence to compile, in some cases essays to research and write, and there's always the necessity to attend a professional interview with 3 trained interview assessors. The assessment process, which also includes background checks and references, is looking for confirmation that the applicant is having a strategic impact and is proficient in security knowledge, puts that knowledge into practice, harbours excellent communication and leadership skills, and also shows a personal commitment to ongoing learning while always offering support for others. At the gathering, Mike Bullock, CEO of Core Security, made sure everyone felt welcome, while Air Marshal Chris Nichols, CBE, Chair of Core Security's Board of Directors, spoke of his admiration and respect for the Register and its vitally important place in the professional security sector as the gold standard for professional certification and recognition. As Registrar of the Register, Mike Bluestone, who won the Lifetime Achievement Award at the 2024 Fire and Security Matters Awards, commended and also paid tribute to all of the volunteers, along with the dedicated administration team at the Security Institute for their hard work. The Register of Chartered Security Professionals is a professional register launched in 2011 and mandated in the Royal Charter granted to the Worshipful Company of Security Professionals back in 2010. The Register itself is administered by the Security Institute on behalf of the Worshipful Company. The mission of the Register is to maintain internationally recognised standards of competence and commitment in protective security for the public benefit and also to certify qualified practitioners in the field as Chartered Security Professionals. Chartered security professionals themselves are required to demonstrate 5 core competency skill sets focused on security knowledge, practical application, communication, leadership, and also professional commitment. From a personal standpoint, all CSyPs need to be making a strategic impact when it comes to the betterment of security practice. Our next guest on this edition of the podcast is Chartered Security Professional Frank Cannon, Senior Consultant at the Optimal Risk Group. A Fellow of the Security Institute and also a Certified Protection Professional, Frank served as one of the presenters at last month's inaugural edition of Security Matters Live and is the former Head of Construction Site Security for Hinkley Point C at EDF Energy. He's also the holder of a master's degree in International Critical Infrastructure Protection. On this occasion, Frank reviews the importance of behavioural-based security and the creation of a security culture within today's organisations. Welcome to the podcast, Frank. First of all, could you explain what behavioural-based security is all about for us?
I can, Brian. So behaviour-based security is about getting people to behave securely so that we can close the vulnerabilities down. It's often thought actually as the fourth component of converged security or integrated security. You know, we know that we've got physical, cyber and personnel. Then if we get the people behaving securely beside those four, then we've got a really, really robust form of defence. Technically, though, I think it's actually part of personnel security because it's the aftercare. And it's aimed really to engage those members of our team and the employees within the organisation, educate them to what we mean by secure behaviours. We can then go on a little bit more and explain if needs be, because actually I think most of it's common sense. And then we're doing this because we want to influence them to behave securely. We want to influence them not to create vulnerabilities within our defence. It's about looking and encouraging them to do all of their daily tasks in a secure way. It's not about creating them or trying to develop them as mini security specialists or professionals. So they're going to behave securely, and we'll rely on our uniformed security officers to actually respond to a security event. I think it's intuitive, to be honest with you. These are intuitive behaviours that once you explain them to people, they understand the value of doing it. So we want to ingrain or embed those intuitive behaviours into the organisational DNA, much the same way as we do safety, for instance, or response to a fire. So they need to be intuitive. Encourage people to bring these common sense behaviours that they would use at home, because they will use them at home, and bring them into the workplace. And I'll give you a real good example of this, is that if you went out and purchased a beautiful bike for your young 7-year-old daughter so she could learn to ride that bike to and from school, the end of her birth date, we wouldn't actually just leave that bike on the front lawn or in the street. We would encourage her to help you put it away, lock it away, hopefully in your garden shed or your garage, so that it's there tomorrow when she wants to play with it again tomorrow. So that intuitive behaviour we want people to bring into the workplace.
And in your view, Frank, precisely why is such a culture important in an organisation today?
Yeah, I mean, I just touched on that, Brian. It's really about, removing the opportunity for the bad guys, the adversaries, to exploit the gaps. So if you're not behaving securely, you're creating vulnerabilities or weaknesses in our defence. And clicking on a link in an unsolicited email, that behaviour opens up our systems and it makes them vulnerable to subsequent attack. The other thing, of course, is that, I took a lot of my learning from NPSA, the National Protective Security Authority. A lot of people might know that still as it's CPNI, but we need to stop saying that. It's NPSA. And they have a really, really good employee vigilance campaign. And they say in the introduction to that, vigilant, secure behaviours will show any hostile watching, hostile reconnaissance, that it's not just the security guards or the CCTV, the cameras that they need to be worried about. Because alert employees who can spot suspicious behaviour, report it and take the appropriate response is so powerful. And they're going to think, I'm not going to bother with this one because they are really, really alert. Because I want our employees to become our organisational eyes and ears. They recognise it and they notify the right people, and then of course we can respond. And just a footnote to this particular question, Brian, is that I believe personally that people breach a security rule or behave insecurely for one of three reasons. The first one is ignorance. They just didn't know that that rule existed, or there's an expectation for them to behave in that certain way. They did not know that. The second thing is complacency. They're just momentarily busy. They've just forgot about it, and that they've unfortunately and unwittingly created a security vulnerability or breached this rule. And the third one, of course, is with malicious intent. And this is the one that we want to focus on. This is where somebody knowingly breaks a rule and they're not really fussed about the consequence. That could be an insider, or it could be somebody knowingly breaking into your facility who has not got authorized access. And I believe behavioral-based security helps reduce all three of these, because it removes the complacency, it educates those that are ignorant, and it enables other more aware members of the team, employees, to recognize when somebody's acting with malicious intent. So BBS is such an affordable and efficient way of enhancing your integrated security systems.
Security leaders operating in this day and age are busy people, of course, Frank. How can they begin to create a security culture within their business?
Now, I think I can make this easy for you, for the busy security professional. And it doesn't need to be a leader, actually. It could be anybody within the organization that decides to create these programs. And I've created a 7-part process on this. The first one then is we need to identify what the behaviors that the people, what the tasks, what are the daily routine that those that we want to educate are performing. What do they need to do to deliver their part of the business plan? So if we understand what they're doing, we can then start determining what those good behaviors are that we'd expect them. Then we look at those behaviors. I use a computer at work. There's a vulnerability. You know, if you don't use that securely, you're going to create vulnerabilities. I print off documents and I refer to them on my desk every day. I enter site. I use handheld tools. There's all these behaviors. So you get these list of behaviors. When you start looking at what do they do, or what are those bad behaviors that you're seeing in your trend analysis, post-incident investigations, you start looking for those poor behaviors, and you know what they are, because you just think, God, I just wish they would do this. I just wish they would shut that door. I just wish they wouldn't smoke at the fire exit. I just wish they put their tools away at the end of each of their work shifts. You know, it's those behaviors that you recognize and that frustrate you all the time. Then the other one, of course, so that's step 2. Step 3 is we need to reference the risk register. So we will have listed, I hope if you've got a mature risk management process, we would have listed some of these vulnerabilities within our risk register. And of course, we want our behavior-based program to close these vulnerabilities out so we can reduce the residual risk thereafter, having applied this behavior-based security program. So we've got to identify the behaviors, identify the activities, identify the bad behaviors, look at our risk register. We can now, as security professionals, start determining, at stage 4, we can start determining the desired behaviors, that if they were to behave in this way, would reduce the likelihood or the consequence of that actual risk occurring, the successful attack occurring, and therefore close those gaps, close those vulnerabilities, the weaknesses in our defense. Now I'm going to move on to stage 5. This is about creating a meaningful method to engage, educate, explain, and influence the behaviors of the people that are going to subscribe to this behavior-based program. So we start creating campaigns, and these campaigns need to be able to resonate with the audience. So we need to think about, who are these people we're trying to influence? What's important to them? What's relevant to them today when they're actually going to go start working on using this program? And let's try and make it personal to the individuals. Data wins arguments, but I know even more so that emotion drives behaviors. So if I can make it personal, then they're more likely to do it. The sixth method then is find this communication forum. How do I communicate my messages to them? Is it through webinars? Is it through campaigns, actually, 1 week or 2 week campaigns per quarter or something? We also communicate behaviors through policies and procedures. We have a code of conduct to remove that antisocial behavior or intimidation in the workplace. All of these tools, you need to start weaving in these secure behaviors into all of these existing tools. We want to build on these existing initiatives. And the last thing, of course, with every good program is that we want to measure the impact. And we need to continue this conversation. This is not a one-time activity. We don't do it third week of January and then expect everybody through the year to be able to comply and behave in accordance with this behavioural-based program. What we want is these on-the-shelf campaigns that we can pull out at the appropriate time. So 7 stages, Brian, and I think if you follow those, this isn't something you do in half an hour, by the way, but if you start building up those, then you can start integrating these little behaviors into every asset, every element of that organizational DNA.
And what are the top 4 areas in which a behavioural-based security culture might exert a meaningful impact, Frank?
So I've delivered these behavioural-based programs now for at least the last 15 years in a commercial environment, but also previously 24 when I was a military policeman. And part of my role was to reach out to the service community. And I've been able to distill these down into 4 distinct areas where I believe they are most impactful. The first area, and what I do is I create campaigns around each of these 4 educational domains or syllabus. The first one is people and personnel security. So this is how do we protect each other? And I might reach out to our mental health first aiders here. I might reach out to our the unions, for instance, those people that influence people and people behaviors. And on the personnel security side, I'm very closely working with my HR or people managers, whatever they're called in your organization, because I want to influence the job descriptions that go out and make sure that there's a protective security requirement in there. I want to make sure that people have a security awareness if they're using computer systems. I want that in their job description. Then I want to bring them into their routine annual performance reviews. I want them to be set objectives. We want the disciplinary process in the organization to include behaviors or secure behaviors. Disciplinary interviews, people leaving disciplinary interviews and being removed from the organization should not just be waved goodbye at the interview room door. They should be escorted off site because they're disgruntled employees. So I do a lot of work with those in this people and personnel security area. The second area I'm moving on to now is protecting property and theft reduction. Once we look after our people, the next biggest thing that we've got is our assets, our property. And so we need to be thinking about campaigns where we can reduce the opportunity for theft. I've got a process that I've worked before, an operation that I've worked before. It's called Op Deny Fagan. And through Fagan being the organised crime, of course, from Charles Dickens' novels, we work out how we can reduce the opportunity for people to steal, whether it be our digital information, whether it be our hard copy documentation, or whether it be our physical assets. So property protection and theft reduction. The third campaign that I run, and I typically do this in the autumn months because I've got longer days, and you'll see why in a minute, is the security response and reporting. So it's okay if we've got security alert people, but if they don't know who to notify when they see something or someone suspicious, then they're not going to be impactful. So how do they report events? How do they report the loss of their wallet from their desk? Because actually, when you pull all those little strands together, you'll find out you've got a thief in the office, and that could be very, very cancerous or corrosive. How do people report? Secondly, how do they respond to an incident? And it could be they're responding to a theft, and that's just notification and making sure that a member of the security team or police indeed could come and look at the crime scene. But it could also be responding to an ongoing event, such as a terrorist event. Do we run, hide, tell? Do we shelter in place? Do we lock down the site, etc., etc. But we've also got a response to a missing piece of or a missing vehicle. So there's lots of different ways of responding. So depending on your organization and the culture that you have within the team, i.e. the level of acceptance, is how you communicate how they would respond. And it could, you put it onto the back of, let's say, a fire drill or something. You could create an equivalent to an organizational fire drill, a lockdown drill. And the last area, of course, and I'm sure many of your listeners will be aware of this, and I know that my fellow podcaster Mark Button has spoken about this in this podcast as well. It's about the cyber security, so cybercrime and information assurance. Cybercrime for me is that digital domain and the infrastructure that you need to support and deliver that online service, so your server rooms, etc., and also that information assurance. And for me, that is about the hard copy, the paper copies that you've got in your workplace, or the amount of information that you push down to your organizational partners or into your supply chain team partners, making sure that you are assuring that they are following your rules. And of course, that would be communicated through your digital standards or your policy on use of computers or something. So people and personnel, 1. Property and theft reduction, 2. Security reporting and response, 3. And cyber security or cybercrime and information assurance, 4. So those 4 campaigns, those 4 programs woven into your organizational DNA, I believe will provide a really, really good behavioral-based security program.
And what's your USP when it comes to creating an integrated behavioral-based security program, Frank?
And this is, I think, is the glitter or the angel dust. This is don't go and create another level of bureaucratical compliance that just drains leadership time. Don't go and tell them that they must be. Don't tell them what they've got to do. Educate them on the why they have to do it. So this is where you understand your organization. You make sure that you understand what initiatives and what programs that other team leaders or other departmental heads are running, and you want to weave these behaviors into their programs, right? I've just talked about creating campaigns. Of course you can do that, but wouldn't it be nice if everybody did everything securely? The second thing is make it simple. Don't give them too much information. Just explain the why, as Simon Sinek would say. They then buy into it because they understand it's personal, relevant, and important to them, and then they start behaving appropriately. So make it simple. Link it to the success of others. So I'm going to use their language. So if I'm talking to a project manager, they work in cost, schedule, safety, time, quality. So I talk in those 4 domains. If I'm talking to a director, I'm talking about keeping them out of jail. I'm talking about maintaining their organizational reputation. I'm talking about making sure that they understand that they're liable and they want to deliver their role as best way possible. The 4th is collaboration. Work out how you can work with other people to deliver a joint message. My USP actually is a cheese and onion flavored safety and security program. What I mean by that is I use the industrial safety concept of the Swiss cheese model. And if you just Google it, you'll see what I mean. And what we know as the onion skin model, the multiple layers of defense to create defense in depth. So by blending cheese and onion, you can get a really nice flavored safety and security program that people enjoy consuming. And again, if you go onto my website, you can see that I've actually created a cheese and onion packet of behavioral-based educational tasty bites. Tell a story. If you're a storyteller, and my program's all about storyboards, tell a story. Because when your mother or father, if indeed you were fortunate enough to have them read to you, and they started off with once upon a time, you leant forward. You were keen. You wanted to hear this story. Put some authenticity behind the program. Don't just tell them, put your tools away every day. Tell them why and tell them and weave it into a story that you know is relevant to them. And I think a liberal dose of humor is always good. If you learn through fun, it's good. It's called serious learning in the theory that I've read about how to create behavioral-based security. If you can gamify the learning, then people are more willing to, and they will remember more. You try and use merchandise, but make that merchandise more relevant to or that fits in and is useful into that organization. You can also use engagement tools such as check sheets, mini exercises, scratch cards, stress balls, and things. I've actually created with previous clients a deck of playing cards. My 4 campaigns is a suit. Each ace is how to communicate, how to report this particular event. And the other 12 cards are 12 impactful messages that, when woven together, create a really good story. So use tools. That's my USP, Brian.
And last but not least, Frank, you recently joined the Optimal Risk Group, of course. Are you taking this BBS program into the team?
I am, and I'm really, really pleased to be working with Optimal Risk Group. What a fantastic group of professionals they are. No egos, and I'm able to ask questions all of the time because I'm continuing to learn myself. I am taking it in, and I'm going to drive, and I'm going to lead this program. And what we're going to be able to offer our clients is that we're going to be able to go into their organizations and quality assure their existing BBS program. Not to tell them that we're better than them, but just to give them that confidence that what they are doing is impactful and working. And if there are opportunities to improve, then of course we can share some of our knowledge. And some of that is what I'm talking about today. We can sit with the in-house security team, we can work together, and we can create these bespoke programs that we will both be happy with once I leave the office that particular day, or however long it takes to do that. And thirdly, or probably we can just take that challenge away from that busy security professional, and we can just come in and create a turnkey service. So it would be me. I would come in. I would understand. I would learn about the business. I would understand the business plan. I would speak to some of the key people within that organization. I would then create or draft a branded program. So this wouldn't be a cookie cut size. This would be a bespoke program for that organization in their colors with their badges. And then they can continue to deliver that. And we would pop in occasionally, once a month or whatever it is, pop in occasionally to help them evolve their program to make sure it's still relevant and the efficacy of it delivers what they want it to do. So that's a new service that we're going to bring in from Optimal Risk using this methodology that I've discussed today.
After almost a decade in the role of Director General for the Defence and Security think tank, the Royal United Services Institute, Dr. Karen von Hippel has announced her intent to move on. In post since 2015, von Hippel has witnessed the Institute grow and change quite considerably. Notably, the Institute has more than doubled its size from around 55 employees to more than 120, and also grown annual income from circa £6 million to upwards of £16 million. Crucially, von Hippel has overseen the successful fundraising for and the renovation of RUSI's historic home on London's Whitehall, with the building reopening in 2023 after a successful 3-year transformation project. At the same time, the Institute's profile has never been higher, with RUSI experts making vital contributions to the understanding of what's now an increasingly complex world. As an independent institution, RUSI produces evidence-based research, publications and events on security, defence and international affairs in order to help build a safer UK and a more secure and stable world. Reflecting on her time leading RUSI, von Hippel observed, "I'm incredibly proud of everything that RUSI has achieved over these past years. We've grown, put the Institute on a strong footing for its long-term future, and solidified our reputation as an independent and impartial thought leader. RUSI is a trusted convener on the most critical defence, security and geopolitical issues." Von Hippel continued, "What I'm most proud of is the fact that these successes have been realised as a team. I'm so grateful to all of the RUSI staff members with whom I've worked, both past and present. I also wish to thank Lord Haig and Sir David Lidington for the support they provided as chairs of RUSI, along with our trustees, advisory board members, associate fellows, and also our donors. We've enjoyed incredible support from His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent, and I leave the organisation knowing full well that RUSI will be privileged to have His Majesty the King as our patron." Dr. von Hippel will leave RUSI once her permanent successor has been identified and appointed. The transition is expected to take place towards the end of the year in the wake of a recruitment process led by RUSI's trustees. Sir David Lidington, KCB CBE, Chair of RUSI, commented, "Under Karen's leadership, RUSI has steadily enhanced its national and global reputation as one of the world's leading think tanks on defence, security and international policy. Karen has overseen a meaningful expansion of the Institute's work from military science through to cyber and financial crime, sanctions policy and climate security." Sir David concluded, "Thanks to Karen, RUSI is in a very strong academic and financial position. She can look back on her achievements at RUSI with justified pride and takes with her my grateful thanks, that of the trustees and indeed everyone concerned with the Institute." Our final guest on episode 31 is Matt Gregg, UK Sales Manager at electronic key and asset management specialist Traka. Matt has worked as head of retail for Harvest Energy, with key responsibilities for operational excellence across a large multi-site retail portfolio. In addition, he has held several roles within the fuel sector, focused both on retail and distribution. At Traka, Matt coordinates planning and develops strategic relationships within the retail and distribution sectors, focusing on how the company's intelligent management solutions can help save time and money by allowing critical control over access to keys and equipment. Here, Matt looks at common business challenges for customers in the current economic environment and also Traka's own Great Service Delivers campaign.
Many thanks indeed for joining us on the podcast, Matt. First of all, can you tell us about Traka as a company and also outline your role within the business?
Certainly, Brian. Thanks for having me. So my name is Matt Gregg. I am the UK sales manager for Traka, and I've been at Traka for 2.5 years, and I look after the sales function for the UK and Ireland. In regards to Traka, we were established in 1995, and Traka itself stands for To Record a Key Asset. And that's effectively what we do. We are specialists in key and asset management. We cover multiple sectors, pretty much everything you can think of, from retail to automotive, healthcare, logistics, distribution, corporate finance, data centers, even prisons, and through to education. So pretty much every sector you could imagine, we can certainly make a positive impact in. What we do, Brian, is we sell solutions, not products, across 3 main elements. And these are really around hardware, software, and then we link these into integrations. So those 3 elements can make a real positive impact into our customers. And we are a global company. So Traka itself, it's based out of just outside Milton Keynes, but we do have global reach. So we do have offices across EMEA, across the United States, down into Asia Pac and through Oceania as well. So for customers that are looking to scale, we can certainly do that. The UK for us is our head office. All of our R&D function, our production and assembly centre are there, our demo area are there, our tech support are there, our software team are there, and our commercial sales is based out of there as well. So for us, Milton Keynes is really the centre of the earth, but we do have that global reach across the globe. And really, Brian, the customer is really at the core of our strategy. So everything we do is all around the customer, and we have numerous long-standing partnerships and relationships with our customers and our well-known brands. And we do have the latest pledge, which is Great Service Delivers, and I'm sure we'll speak about that a little bit later on. But for us, the customer really is, as I say, at the core of our strategy. And some of those customers that we were dealing with in 1995, we're still doing so in 2024. So we're definitely a trusted brand, and it's a great place to be.
And when you're working with your customers, Matt, what are the common business challenges that arise in conversations at the moment?
Yeah, it's a great question. And obviously the world continues to change. We're seeing emerging markets, even the legacy from COVID, the geopolitical tensions that we get all over. Lots of our customers are leaning a lot more on sustainability, clearly, as we need to, the move to digitization and automation. And also, certainly here within the UK, that changing consumer habit as well is really having an impact in regards to what customers are looking for. So they are still looking for the main things around security, accountability, really trying to maximize productivity where they can, save costs in the economic climate we're currently in. Health and safety, we can have a massive impact in regards to health and safety process within organizations. Traceability, so where things are, who's got what, when were they returned, when were they not returned. Supply chain, how can we make those processes really, really lean? And as I say, Traka is a brand that you can really trust. So all of those elements that are those common trends that customers are looking for, we can certainly assist with. And we do so on a daily basis.
And from your perspective, Matt, how is Traka positioned to tackle those challenges?
Yeah, so as I said, Brian, we don't really sell products. We really do sell solutions. So customers come to us with a specific need. Our solutions are so configurable, whether they're going into an education facility or whether they're going into a government agency or whether they're going into a retail store. The hardware can be very, very similar. The software can be very, very similar, but it can be so configurable that it allows us to be very agile and adaptable to those different challenges that those customers are facing. So, for example, today we could be dealing with a retail environment that have a very particular need, and then tomorrow we could be dealing with a hospital in a healthcare setting that has a very different demand, but is using our equipment and our solutions to fulfill that need. Our solutions are completely configurable. They have a wealth of features on them. We can do things like fault logging. We can do automation of rotating devices around. We can monitor mileage and fuel consumption of vehicles. We can automatically allocate assets. We can send alerts if keys aren't returned on time or if assets aren't returned on time. So all of our solutions really are, as I say, completely configurable and adaptable to the environment they're being deployed in. And also they can be integrated as well to third-party access control platforms or third-party systems. So it does mean that our solutions can be deployed into these organizations seamlessly. So we can use existing infrastructure within those organizations. So it's nothing that's really new to a business. It really just does assist with what they already have.
And what are the subsequent benefits that Traka's customers can expect to see?
Those subsequent benefits, Brian, we have a really attractive ROI. We're really confident in regards to what we supply to the market, that we are a market leader in what we do. And when we do that at a really attractive ROI position, we believe that our solutions can really improve efficiency and productivity. We can really reduce that lost time. And also with assets and keys, managing assets, some of these assets can be several £1,000s. We can make sure that we can provide all the data to the customer of where that asset is, who's got it, when it was returned, if it wasn't returned. And as I say, we then have those additional features and functionality that can send email alerts out. We can allow our customers to be really proactive about how they deal with their assets and keys on site. And also with those assets being, as I say, several thousands of pounds in some cases, we can manage to reduce the damage or loss of those assets as well by deploying some of our RFID technology within our solutions to make sure that we are confident in making sure that asset is where it should be in regards to our locker solution, or where that key is in regards to our key management solutions.
The country now finds itself in a technical recession, Matt. In tough economic times such as this, why is it so important for businesses to streamline their operations, and where can they begin to do that?
It's absolutely vital. And if we use an example of a distribution and logistics centre, we can really have an impact there in maximising productivity and efficiency. And what I mean by that is where traditionally there may be some manual processes in place for issuing equipment or issuing keys, we can really automate that to make sure that we can take the manual element away from it, and therefore we can reduce the loss of time and also reduce the damage to assets or loss of assets. So staff members can come into that distribution and logistics facility. They can access equipment straight away without a delay, and we're not relying on a manual process to issue or reissue or return that equipment. So that can really make a massive impact in regards to productivity for start of shift through to start of pick, I suppose. And likewise at the end of the day as well, making sure that equipment comes back into the site, but at the right time, not early, so that we can really maximise the productivity of that shift. And we are so reliant on these digital devices in every sector that we operate in, that trying to maximise the efficiency and productivity of those assets is absolutely vital. And that's where we believe we can play a major part, especially in, as you say, those tough economic times that we're currently in.
And finally, Great Service Delivers is Traka's customer-centred pledge for 2024. Great service from supplier to customer is, of course, absolutely fundamental. Could you tell us about Traka's pledge and also how it's going to be delivered on the ground?
Yes, Brian. So as I say at the start, really, we have a real customer-centric strategy that we have in place, and the customer really is at the heart of everything we do. And we think the theme of Great Service Delivers really does capture the spirit of exceptional customer service. As I said at the very start, Traka was set up with the acronym Traka, Traka, to record a key asset. And we've used that Traka once again to really have the 5 pillars that we believe are truthful, responsive, approachable, kind, and accurate. And as I say, all through this podcast today, we provide solutions to a customer's issue, not products. And as such, we see that Great Service Delivers can really deploy those solutions and really resolve those customer issues, whichever sector we operate in. But we also see internally here within Traka that everyone within the team understands and is accountable for their own impact on the customer, from order placement through to completion and beyond. Everyone holds that customer-centric strategy at the very heart of everything we do here at Traka.
That brings us to the end of this latest edition of the Security Matters podcast. Many thanks indeed to Professor Mark Button of the University of Portsmouth, Frank Cannon from the Optimal Risk Group, and also Traka's Matt Gregg for their highly valued contributions. Many thanks also to our podcast sponsor, the Security Event. The Security Event runs from the 8th to the 10th of April 2025 at the NEC in Birmingham. To register for the show, visit www.thesecurityevent.co.uk. Don't forget to visit our website at www.securitymattersmagazine.com, where you can access all of our podcasts and also read the latest news and opinion from the security business sector. You can view our dedicated features content and also sign up to receive our very popular weekly news bulletin. Please do contact us if there are any key themes or issues you would like us to explore on upcoming editions of the podcast. You can do so on X, formerly Twitter of course, by using the hashtag SecurityPod. On that note, make sure you follow us on X at WBMSecMatters and access our LinkedIn page at Security Matters Magazine and website. Please do like and share the podcast content and spread the word among your industry colleagues. You can listen to the Security Matters podcast for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube or Podbean. To download the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, all you need to do is enter the term Security Matters into your chosen platform search box. We'll see you next time.